Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for January 31st to February 6th of 2016. And on January 31st, we have the sun. You can see it denoted here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Aquarius, and it's in the 19th hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we've got the chop mark for the 19, numbered from bottom to top. The 19 goes yang, yang, yin, 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 yin. And then the 19th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called the gate. And this is the 19th gate of wanting approach, that all things are interrelated, is apparent and manifested through the action of approach, located in the root center in a tribal energy path in the ego circuit called the channel of synthesis, a design of being sensitive that connects to the 49th gate of principles, revolution. Ideally, the transformation of forms is based on the highest principles and not simply for power. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing people, that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we have the following activated gates on January 31st. The sun is in the 19th gate. The Earth is in the 33rd gate. The North Node is in the 47th gate, with the South Node in the 22nd gate. Mercury is newly direct, and it's in the 54th gate. Venus is in the 58th gate. We have Mars in the first gate, with Jupiter retrograde, and it's in the 47th gate along with the North Node. Saturn is in the 5th gate. Uranus is in the 51st gate. Neptune is in the 37th gate. And Pluto is in the 54th gate along with Mercury. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And we begin the week with no channel definition due to the transit field. January 31st begins with the sun in the 4th line of the 19th hexagram. So the sun is in the 19.4, which is described as the team player, individual approach which attracts and accepts cooperation, exalted the power and energy of outward activity and the ability to accept others as long as they can keep up, a driving force that can benefit the whole group, the energy to seek and exalt in the company of others, detrimented, attractive, and cooperative, but the tendency to dissatisfaction with the contribution of others, a sensitivity energized by the limitations of others. Later on the 31st, the sun moves into the 5th line, so it leaves the opportunist line. It moves into the heretical line of the 19th hexagram at 3:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 19.5 is described as sacrifice, the need to limit personal potential in order to achieve a target goal, exalted the self-restraint fundamental to such a nature, energy to keep one's sensitivities restrained, detriment, a tendency in sacrifice to condescend. Sacrifice can fuel a lack of sensitivity. Also on the 31st, Venus moves from the 58 into the 38. Venus is about morality, values, natural law, in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us. And it's in the 38th gate of the fighter, opposition, the ability to preserve individual integrity through opposition to detrimental forces. And Venus in the first line of the 38 is qualification. Tempering opposition based on circumstances, exalted the psychic attunement that guarantees proper action, the psychic gift of knowing when and how to fight, detrimented the tendency to oppose as a general rule, the drive to fight as a general rule. On February 1st, the sun then moves into the 6th line, into the role model line of the 19th hexagram at 1:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 19.6 is the recluse, the avoidance of contact in general, but not exclusively, exalted, the fool on the hill, the sage, if you can find him, will talk to you. the energy which generally fuels avoidance. Detrimented the sulking child, the self-imposed exile that will only end when it attracts an appropriate and soothing reaction. Oversensitivity to rejection that fuels avoidance. And on the second, the sun then moves from the 19 and into the 13, and the earth moves from the 33 into the 7. And so we have the earth is in the 7th hexagram, and this is the gate of the role of the self, the army, the point of convergence. By design, the need for leadership to guide and order society. And this shift happens at 11:22 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we've got the sun. It's in the 13th gate of the listener, the fellowship of man, universal ideas and values in an order framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. And the sun is in the first line of the 13, which is empathy, the ability to relate to relate and commune with equanimity, exalted harmony through affection, a role in openness to listening to others with affection, detriment the politician kissing babies, an openness that is never free of motives. And as we continue into the rave new year, with the sun's shift into the 13 and the earth into the 7, this brings us to the cross of the Sphinx, which is about direction. The 13 represents the second stage of the rave new year cycle. The 13th gate is collective. It's a role gate. It's about our role with the others. It's the fellowship of man, which is about empathy. And the 13th gate is open. It takes things in. It collects information. It's the collector of secrets. It collects and learns from its experiences and interactions with others. So this is about paying attention to who is interacting with us. Who can I learn from? And with the earth in the 7, who can you learn from that is going to enrich that role that you're going to play in the process as you move into the rave new year. And Ross spoke, one of the most important things to remember about starting a cycle is remembering that it's important to be open. It's important to take things in from the others, because in that may be the very things that you need that are going to fulfill the possibility of the cycle coming up. And on the 3rd, the sun then moves into the 2nd line. Leaving the investigator line, it's moving into the hermit line of the 13th hexagram and gate, where it is detrimented. And the shift happens at 9:32 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the sun in the 32-2 is described as bigotry, the risk always present that fellowship can only exist for a particular type, whether radical, religious, national, or intellectual, detrimented the obsessive belief that the highest ideals cannot be embraced by the lowest forms, an extremely difficult position where the highest ideas provide the rationalization of hatred, a role of openness so narrow that there is practically no one worth listening to. And honestly, this is one of the saddest things I see in some of the human design communities. People using this knowledge of the system to tear other people down under the guise of promoting the knowledge. It is my opinion that all they're promoting is conditioning. On the 4th, the sun then moves into the 3rd line, so into the martyr line of the 13th hexagram. This is pessimism, the belief that what is best can never be achieved, exalted, a lack of trust that can only be transformed through concrete evidence, openness that is conditioned by suspicion and seeks evidence, detrimented, pessimism exalted to an art form, whereas art, it may have the opposite effect, satire, where the rightness of suspicion can inspire satire. And then on the 5th, The sun then moves into the fourth line. So we're back to the line of the opportunist, this time in the 13th hexagram. And this shift happens at 5:54 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where the sun in the 13:4 is described as fatigue, the point of exhaustion eventually reached when one is too tired to fight. Exalted, the resistance that comes with the truce, and the eventual reinvigoration. Openness, which leads to exhaustion and the need for silence. Detrimented, emotional exhaustion, appeasement and withdrawal. A role where openness is a vulnerability. And then also on the 5th, we have Venus moving from the 38, and it joins Mercury and Pluto in the 54. As we said before, Venus is about morality and natural law and things of that nature. So we've got it in the 54th gate of ambition, the Marian maiden, interaction in its mundane social context, but also one's mystical and cosmic relationships. And Venus is detrimented in the first line of the 54, which is, we would see as this downward pointing triangle as a detriment in the chart. But it's also being exalted because Pluto's in the 54, and that's the upward pointing triangle. So when you see the Venus in the 54-1 on the 5th, it's going to look like a six-pointed star because it's the overlay of those two triangles. This is the 54 is 54-1 is influence, exalted, the ability to achieve through secret relationships, where anywhere from the private advisor to the saintness. Ambition energized through secret relationships, which fuels influence. Detrimented, socially misguided instance on formal recognition. Socially misguided insistence on formal recognition of a relationship that in terms of influence will diminish power. Ambition, which demands formal recognition, limiting influence. And then on the 6th, the sun then moves into the 5th line. So we are in the heretical 5th line of the 13th hexagram. At 4:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the sun in the 13:5 is described as the savior, the ability to overcome all obstacles for the betterment of humanity. Exalted, the charismatic genius who finds a role for everyone, the listener who has a gift for finding the role for others. Detrimented, the able administrator. Given the extreme positive nature of this position, mundane application is rare. The listener whose gift for finding roles for others is practical and suited for administration. And also on the 6th, Mercury leaves the 54 and leaving behind Venus and Pluto, and it moves into the 61 up here in the head center. And Mercury was the messenger of the gods, so this is about communication and expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music, according to Ra. And this is the game of mystery, inner truth, the awareness of universal underlying principles. Mercury is in the first line of the 61, which is occult knowledge, exalted, a natural psychic awareness that empowers the principles of universalization, the pressure to know the mysteries through esoterics. Detrimented, where the realization where the reliance on secret knowledge increasingly demands ascetic withdrawal and leads eventually to obscurity, where the pressure to know the mysteries can be so strong that one can be eventually incapable of handling exoteric realities. So thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be on for February 7th, 2016. It should be available on the 6th, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. And you can check us out on Facebook and Blogger and YouTube. This New World Birth presence is in all these places. And I encourage you to share this information, as videos or as text, as widely as you choose. I've omitted things that I normally include in the broadcast just so that it would be shorter and more concise, but those will be included in the text places that this shows up, like in Blog or in Facebook. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you've got any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. As I've said before, reading is a great way to make a donation, but you can also contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com, and I'll tell you how else you can make a donation. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. So all my best. With the sun going into the 13th gate of the listener, I'll be looking forward to hearing your feedback on this new, hopefully more concise format. All my best to everybody.